Hello, everyone. My name is Adeola Akonde. I am currently chairing the African Working Group of the Project Management Institute. Today, we're here to interview the director for the Milkmaid movie, which is an African movie. And I would like to introduce Desmond. Desmond Ovbiagele is the director of the Milkmaid movie. He is a former investment banker with Citigroup and Standard Chartered Bank. He left the banking industry to pursue a passion for movie production. He wrote, produced, and directed his debut feature film, Render to Caesar, a crime drama which was selected to compete for the Etalon de Yenega. Today, we're here to talk about the Milkmaid movie, which Desmond also wrote, produced, and directed.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
In rural sub-Saharan Africa, Aisha, a Fulani milkmaid, is searching for her younger sister, Zainab. Dire personal circumstances force her to approach the religious militants who were responsible for their separation in the first instance, but she is determined to find her despite the compromises she must make to do so. However, her quest to recapture her past proves to be unexpectedly complicated in a world whose festering conflict provides several paths to becoming a victim with typically irreversible consequences. At this point, this movie is the first Nigerian film successfully submitted to the Oscars. It's a film that touches on women as leaders with cultural diversity, even within a national culture. We will be showing a short clip of the movie before we go into the questions.
In zan tuna, lura da Zainab shine manufana a rayuwa.
Menene kike so?
Na neman yar uwata.
Menene zaki bada?
Mu kuma za mu koya miki yadda ya kamata har ki ce da mu kin gode.
Na yanke shawarin zan aurar da wannan matan.
A'a.
Ba za ki bi umarni na ba? Daga min ita daga nan.
Idan ta mutu ma, haka Allah ya so. Ki shirya kamar mace ta gari. Ina zuwa anjima da dare.
Hakan ya tabbatar da cewa aikin mu mata ba kuka kawai da kula da gida idan mazan ba su nan.
Ya matarka?
Ta fita nema kamar kullum.
Muna iya bin hanyar zaman shahidai.
Danko!
Baba ka sira mutum mana.
Zamu je duk wurin da so mu je yanzu.
Kusa da shi ku kama mun shi, ku bi, ku bi.
Duk ga abubuwa da kun so mu yi.
Mu koma yadda muke da.
Ba za mu iya ba. Babu ma wanda zai iya.
This is such a powerful storyline, and it highlights some realities that we in society need to keep in front of our minds and respond to. So Desmond, thank you for this awesome movie. How did you come up with the idea and what inspired you? Especially since you are not even from the northern part of the country?
Why did I produce The Milkmaid? Well, after my first project, my first film, Render to Caesar, I spent a couple of years essentially trying to learn from that experience, digesting what I had been through, and just trying to establish within myself who I was as a filmmaker, and what I wanted my films to represent in the committee of films, internationally. So when I was thinking about my next project, one thing I knew is that I wanted a topic. I wanted a project that was extremely topical and relevant to the environment in which I live in. I live in Lagos, Nigeria, and unfortunately, one of the most topical issues in Nigeria since 2010 has been the phenomenon of religious extremism taking place in the northern part of Nigeria. We're besieged daily, with reports about the number of casualties, in the northern part of Nigeria, the number of people who have succumbed, the number of people who have been displaced, currently living in IDP camps. But what I felt was missing was the fact that there was no backstory to who these people were. It was just statistics, basically. And I really felt it was important, particularly to retrain the attention of the world on the vulnerable and those most impacted by insurgency. It was important to humanize their stories. So effectively, I set out to embark on a project which I wanted to serve as a voice, for those who typically can't speak for themselves, but yet are the most affected by religious extremism.
Right now, we are at the Project Management Institute's virtual conference for Africa. And what I would like to do is to look at your achievement from the point of view of a project. So according to PMI, a project is described as a temporary effort to create value through a unique product, service, or result. All projects definitely must have a beginning and an end. They have a team, a budget, a schedule, and a set of expectations that the team needs to meet. Projects are typically run by someone whose job title is, quote unquote, a project manager. For those whose job title is not project manager, and yet they are delivering value, we call them change makers. So I guess in this situation, you are a change maker. So let's look at The Milkmaid as a project. What kind of planning, in the planning phase, what kind of planning is entailed in your planning? How long did it take? What tools, what techniques did you use, if any, in planning for this project?
In terms of the process of planning to put The Milkmaid together, I went through the typical steps that a filmmaker would. I mean, first and foremost, one of the most important things to do is to be very clear about what film you're trying to make. Are you making a comedy? Are you making a drama? Are you making a thriller? What genre is the film? And who is its target audience? Because that will effectively involve your decisions in terms of putting together the respective elements of the film, in terms of costumes, in terms of actors and actresses, in terms of cinematography, in terms of the storyline. So once I knew I wanted to do a film about religious extremism, I also wanted to do a film that was as authentic as possible, because we're trying to portray the lives of real people here, people who had been through severe trauma, and we didn't want to do them an injustice. We wanted to ensure that we were as authentic to who they were as human beings as possible. So that meant being very accurate in terms of the location in which they live, meaning that we couldn't shoot the film in the southern part of the country where I live. We actually had to go up north to the actual theater of conflict to shoot the film. We also wanted to shoot the film in the language in which they would naturally communicate, which is not English. The characters in that setting communicate in Hausa and Fulfulde and Arabic, particularly among the insurgents themselves. So we needed to get the script, which was written in English, translated into those languages. And then now realized, in front of the camera through that. So once it was very clear to me, and I had made a decision as to what sort of product I was trying to make, to manufacture, then obviously the next step was to begin to identify those elements and resources that could most optimally achieve that result.
Thank you very much, Desmond. So once you got the resourcing bit sorted and the film started, in terms of scheduling, how were you able to stick to your schedule? Did you have timelines for the project, and were you able to finish after your kickoff within the timelines that you stipulated, or did you have overruns, or just give me an idea of how you scheduled the project?
In terms of the schedule for the Milkmaid, we had originally budgeted around about 6 to 7 weeks, which we thought and hoped would be sufficient to cover, all the scenes and scenarios in the story. I would say, however, that filmmaking generally, particularly principal photography, I sort of liken it to bronc riding, which takes place in the sort of American rodeos. So basically, you have competitors, who get onto, fairly wild horses, and the idea of the competition is how long they can actually stay on the back of the horse until the horse throws them off. And that's certainly what it felt like in terms of embarking on shooting a film on location, because right from the get-go, so many obstacles are being thrown your way to try and get you off course in terms of budget, to get you off course in terms of time, and certainly, like a bronc rider, you're basically hanging on for dear life, and you're just hoping that you don't fall and break your neck or something. So that was what it felt like. In terms of what the reality was, yes, we did have challenges. We were pushing on a number of fronts with this kind of film. We weren't shooting in Lagos, as I said. We were shooting in the Northeast. Northeast does have security issues that affected the pace of shooting. We weren't shooting in English. We were shooting in Hausa and Fulfulde, which is the Fulani language, and in Arabic, neither of which I speak. But I needed to direct actors in those languages. Again, that also affected the pace of shooting. Again, when it comes to financing, I was hoping financing would have been raised in time enough for us to shoot during the Harmattan season, which is a dry season in Nigeria, and particularly in the north. That didn't happen. The financing came together in the first quarter of the year we shot. And so that effectively meant when we started shooting, we were just entering the rainy season in Taraba State in Nigeria, where we shot. And for a film like ours that has a lot of exterior scenes, that was extremely disruptive to us in terms of keeping to scheduling for shooting the number of scenes that had been scheduled for each particular day. So that's an example of some of the issues that contributed to pushing us around and getting us slightly off course in terms of time and cost.
I'm going to move on to my next questions, and it's going to be about stakeholders. Generally, in project management, we talk about stakeholders. Who are the people involved in this Milkmaid movie? Who are your main stakeholders? Your actors, your financiers, maybe your directors and producers. And then, what was the process of engaging with your stakeholders? Also, in project management, I'm just trying to ask two questions rolled into one. Actually, we talk about stakeholder management, which is a really key component of project management. How did you manage your stakeholders? What were some of the challenges you faced with your stakeholders? Maybe your actors, your movie producers, your photographers. What were those? Who are those stakeholders, and what challenges did you face managing them and getting them to the point of being successful on this Milkmaid movie?
Well, in terms of stakeholders for the Milkmaid movie project, there are a number of parties that can be easily identified. One, obviously, is the cast and the crew for the project. Because we were shooting the film in Hausa, that effectively meant that a lot of the more established, more popular Nollywood actors and actresses were not ideal. Because we were shooting the film in Hausa, that effectively meant that a lot of the more established Nollywood actors and actresses were not ideal for this project, because they don't speak that language. So we had to gravitate towards Kannywood, which is the Hausa language filmmaking industry in Nigeria. We did recruit a couple of acting resources from there, and we made up the difference in terms of the supporting cast through open auditions, which we held at the shooting location in Taraba State. Ditto for the crew. We wanted to ensure we had the best possible hands to shoot this film, because we knew where we were trying to get to quality level wise, who the target audience was, and we knew we simply couldn't afford to compromise in terms of quality, even if that meant a far more enhanced budget than most filmmakers in this part of the world to be comfortable with. But we were committed to delivering the product to the best possible standards that we could achieve. So that meant drafting not just local crew, but also foreign crew. We had a number of people who came in from the UK and from Kenya, to join us in Nigeria and assist in shooting the film. So that's one level of stakeholders. The second level is the audience itself. I guess once we release the film on wide release, we'll find out what the nature of that interaction would be. But we have had a number of private screenings, which we've had at the World Bank in DC, we've had at the UN in New York, and also at the BFI London South Bank, as well as at various film festivals in Egypt, in LA, Los Angeles. We've also had in New York as well, and in Egypt. So the film's been around. We've had a chance to get a sense of what the audience feels about the film, which fortunately has been largely positive. So that's another level of stakeholders. And you have other stakeholders like the government itself, security agencies, who are also a key stakeholder in the making of this film, and that's principally because we're shooting in an area which has had security challenges. Obviously, the security personnel who are present there, were naturally concerned to ensure that in the process of shooting the film, particularly this kind of film, we didn't inadvertently trigger some sort of negative reaction from the local community there. So they had to be pretty much on the ball to ensure that we were in the right places at the right time. Also, another stakeholder is the local community in Taraba State where we shot. They weren't accustomed to this level of production coming to be shot in their state, so it was certainly a learning experience for both ourselves and themselves as well. But that notwithstanding, we also had a lot of sensitization that we needed to do to assure them that we weren't portraying their culture and their state in a negative light, and just needing to interact with their traditional rulers and make them aware of the project we were doing and how beneficial it could be, not just socially or politically, but also technically and commercially for their economy in that state. Other stakeholders would also involve the potential distributors for the film, and that sort of interaction can actually come in pre-production and also during principal photography, but for us came mostly in post-production. Once we actually had shot the film and we're putting it together, and we're now liaising with potential distributors to ensure that the film was of the sort of standard and creative quality that they wanted. So those are effectively some of the key and major stakeholders. And of course, I can't leave out one of the main stakeholders in the film, which is actually the community of the displaced people and the actual victims of insurgency. And they were quite instrumental in pre-production in terms of interacting with them and understanding their stories and their experiences and what they had been through, and trying to factor that and weave that into the narrative of the film.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Desmond. Your insights are very, very key. And from your explanation, you talked about the government and the security issues and trying to ensure that you didn't have anything that would trigger a conflict while shooting the movie. So my next question is about, did you have any specific conflicts since you actually filmed on location in an area where there can be the same type of conflict depicted in the movie? Did you have any confrontations? Did you have any security challenges while shooting the movie?
Yes, so in terms of shooting the milkmaid on location in northeast Nigeria, we had one major direct security challenge. We had a number of tangential security challenges while shooting the film. The major direct security challenge was whilst one of our crew buses was wending its way from the southern part of Nigeria by road to the northeast to meet up with the rest of us who were waiting for them on location. And somewhere in the southeast of Nigeria, they were apprehended at a security checkpoint. And when their vehicle was inspected and their luggage was inspected, a lot of our costumes and props, which we had provided and designed, to provide very authentic portrayals, of these insurgents were found, on the crew bus. And unfortunately, some locals on the scene misinterpreted the identity of our camera crew who were on the bus as being the insurgents who had attacked their village a couple of days prior. So unfortunately in this part of the world, the next step is to inflict jungle justice, which they set out to do. They had literally started to put used tires around the necks of these young men to start burning them. And we were extremely fortunate that there was some level of intervention at that point, to keep the mob at bay. Whilst they notified us in the northeast, and we started making frantic calls to various connections we had in the security forces to try and get those young men evacuated from that scene. Which eventually happened. They were taken into police custody for their own protection, where they spent a week. Whilst the security agencies were trying to unravel who they were and why they were traveling about, the country, with these, what they considered to be very sensitive materials. So that took us a week to resolve. Obviously, schedule-wise, that was one of the contributors to us, going off schedule. And obviously, it was a very traumatic time for both the crew who were directly involved as well as us, who were waiting for them and trying to resolve the situation in the northeast. But eventually, it was resolved, and they joined us, and we commenced the shoot. But that was obviously extremely disruptive, for us as a production. Beyond that, whilst we were shooting, because of the nature of the film, we were shooting in some of the rural communities in the state, where we're shooting in the northeast. And that particular state has been bedeviled to a certain extent by attacks from herdsmen who essentially come to their village and essentially just level their villages, burning their huts, and unfortunately attacking people. So the village in which we were shooting was not directly affected, but unbeknownst to us, the village next to where we were shooting was being attacked. We weren't aware of it until we had finished shooting, which I'm sort of thankful for, because if we had been aware of it, we would have had to stop shooting immediately and demobilize. But we were able to get our shots. It was only after the fact that we heard that actually there was a real and present danger not too far from us.
Wow, that was very brave of you to have shot this movie and to have gone through those challenges and come out positively. So for me to finish the project aspect of this interview, I'm talking about closing the projects. In project management, we talk about project closure, which can often be daunting because as the leader, you've been thinking about, your delivery, whether it's on time, whether it's to budget, whether it's within the scope of what you planned. So at this moment, I would just like to know what your thoughts are, your emotions. What did you experience as you brought this project to a close? Are you satisfied with what you did? Are you happy? Do you think you have accomplished what you set out to accomplish? How do you feel at this time about this great movie production?
Well, in terms of my thoughts about the project, I think it's certainly one of overwhelming gratitude. We were able to, as you said, come away, with usable footage, given the circumstances in which we were functioning over there. We know that a number of other films in Nigeria had also attempted and embarked on the same thematic matter for a feature film, with varying levels of success. Some of them actually, till today, even though they started shooting before us, still haven't finished their films just because of the challenges that they had shooting those films, in the country. Nigeria doesn't have studios. So effectively, most, if not all, films are shot on location, basically, and that comes with, various levels of risk, various levels of disturbance and interruption. So for us, having mobilized to the Northeast to shoot this film, and we having been fortunate enough to have the film, selected as Nigeria's representative to the Oscars, I think it's such a fantastic reward, particularly to my cast and crew who actually sacrificed, a lot of their time, and their comfort, to stay in the Northeast and get the film done.
Excellent. Thank you so much. My next question is just generally about the industry, but I guess the question answers itself because I was going to ask about what has been the response from the Nigerian film industry. But obviously, as the movie has been selected for the Oscars, as you have already received great reviews and positive feedback on the movie, I guess that's. Can you tell me more about the reception for this movie?
Well, we have had, as I mentioned earlier, a number of private screenings, both locally and internationally, which were well received, and we're very grateful for that. Perhaps our first major step into critical consideration of the film was when we submitted it for consideration to represent Nigeria at the Oscars, among several other films. And we were, extremely gratified and humbled that at the end of the day, we were selected to represent, countries. So that's certainly, the sort of stamp of approval, that sort of makes, all the efforts, all the sacrifices, all the wahala, as we call it down here, worth it, So, it's, and beyond that, we're also fortunate to have gotten a number of awards at the African Movie Academy, awards, which is sort of like the premier awards in Africa, or like the Oscars in Africa, and you were able to win the award of best film among others there. So that was very important for us. As I said, sometimes you're looking at what your cast and crew have been through, and you're wondering how can I possibly reward them. But I'm very grateful that at least we have these that they can show, as a testament to their efforts.
Thank you. Very, very remarkable work. In closing, what advice would you give to those budding change makers like you who are out there trying to pursue their passion and trying to make an impact through the movie industry in Nigeria?
Well, I say for budding filmmakers out there, particularly in this part of the world, in Africa, in Nigeria, if you want to be a change maker, you want to do novel things, you want to sort of change the narrative and go in a different direction, then you need to have you need to be ready for it. Physically, mentally, you need to have a thick skin. You need to have as we call it here, strong shock absorbers, because you're going to get many shocks along the way. You need to be extremely persevering in terms of being committed to achieving your original vision. There are going to be so many factors that will materialize along the way to put you off course and to dissuade you. And you also need to have tunnel vision. Because you're operating in an environment, in which, what you're trying to do isn't conventional wisdom. People feel that, what you're trying to do, either it won't make money or it's too risky and all that. So there'll be so many factors available, in close proximity to you to try and discourage you from that path and try and make you apply a more conventional path. So you certainly need to be very, very confident, in your vision for what you're doing, and as much as possible, stick to it.
Thank you very much. Great advice. So for those who have not seen the movie, where and when can they go and see it?
Yes, it's certainly been, for us, it's been a long time coming. We are still in distribution negotiations with a number of streaming platforms, and we are hoping that sometime in the fourth quarter of this year, finally, the Milkmaid will be available through one channel or the other, probably a streaming platform, for as many people as are interested and have followed us and supported us to actually finally watch the film.
So, Desmond, what is next for you? What else are you going to be working on once you are done with this Milkmaid movie?
Well, I seem to have a passion for true life, real life stories. I have a project that I'm trying to get into development. It has echoes of the pandemic. It was something that happened about a decade ago in Africa. A real life story with elements of a thriller. So I'm trying to hopefully get that into production either at the end of the year or at the very latest early next year. So that's next on my front burner.
All right. Thank you very much, Desmond. It's been great talking to you. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It was very insightful. It was eye-opening, actually. And I'm glad you are telling the story. I'm glad that you are helping us to see this narrative in a way that was very, very, very true to the environment and very authentic way. So thank you very much. Thank you for the great work that you are doing. And we hope that you will have more successes in the future. We wish you all the best at the Oscars. Thank you very much, Desmond.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.